What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. Maybe the best part of any Pokemon game is putting together a team that strikes a balance between all of their types, physical or special attacks, and all of their different stats. So it's always nice to come across new Pokemon to potentially add into the mix. But every now and then you'll find a team member who's exactly what you need and fills their role perfectly, only to immediately fall off and never really be useful for the rest of the game, no matter how much you want them to be. So here's a testament to the Pokemon that are indispensable for about 5 minutes before you throw them away forever. Number 6. The Elemental Monkeys. This is honestly the best example I could probably think of to explain this topic. In Gen 5, the early game is notoriously limited, so you can really only get half a team at most before you face the gym, and you would have no chance at any advantages. That's where these monkeys come in, since they're given to the player just before the gym. So while the leader may change based on your starter, you also now have a super effective Pokemon to use against them, and whichever one you end up with is likely the critical reason that you even got your first badge. However, the problem is, these are the elemental monkeys we're talking about. They are looked down on and made fun of for quite a few reasons, but one of the biggest is their lack of a move pool. Even the TMs are quite limited, so not only do the base stages learn very few attacks, you also can't evolve them for quite a while because they're stone evolutions, and you would miss out on even more moves. And for having to keep them around for so long, they are way too weak to keep up with the stronger Pokemon even by the mid-game. And while they can probably do fine for the second gym, each monkey runs across a weakness in short order, so while they're a helpful lifeline at the very start, they flounder quite quickly compared to other options of their types in the black and white games. Number 5. Grimer. For fans of the original anime, the sight of a muck could bring terror. However, in the Gen 1 games, it can be hard to use that power for yourself, largely because of how late you can find a Grimer at all. For some reason, despite having to battle them constantly from bikers and grunts, you can't find your own Grimer until the Pokemon Mansion, which is all the way down in Cinnabar. And this is too bad because they really are decent Pokemon. Even if Grimer is a bit below the level cap to evolve, you could still use it pretty effectively against Blaine by minimizing and then just tossing out poison status conditions. However, even if Grimer evolves, it's going to be disadvantaged for the rest of the game, because the very next gym is the ground type one, where your poisonous sludge would be weak to 5 strong Pokemon, and then Victory Road is also filled with Pokemon that beat or resist the poison type, and the Elite Four is no better. Lorelei has psychic types on her team, while Bruno has more ground. You can't get poison onto a single one of Agatha's Pokemon, so I guess Lance is the first time that a muck would ever be able to really shine. But no matter what starter your rival has, he'll always be packing a Rhydon and Alakazam, and his grass options would either shrug off poison or beat it outright. So as good as muck might be on paper, in the first Kanto games, it was undercut almost immediately after it was introduced. I guess all of the strong trainers were just scared of it and therefore had a plan in place to face it at some point. Number 4. Crabrawler. This one is fairly obvious if you think about it, but not everyone went out of their way to check every pile of berries, or were just never lucky enough to run across a Pokemon in there. But this boxing crab is instrumental for completing the first island in Sun and Moon, since you can pick it up before the normal type trial. And with the only other fighting Pokemon being Makuhita, you're going to appreciate Crabrawler's higher attack stat and natural learning of Rock Smash to lower their defense. Without one, it's gonna be a lot more difficult to defeat that Gumshoos or Alolan Raticate. But Crabrawler could also help out against the Team Skull Grunts and even Kahuna Hala. However, the problem here is that you couldn't evolve this Pokemon even if you wanted to. For some reason, in the same region that introduced the Ice Stone for evolution, they opted to not have that apply to Crabrawler here, and instead make sure that it wouldn't evolve until you get to Mount Lanakila, which is the final spot of the whole game. That means your little courageous crustacean can do their best, but they'll be a little bit out of luck by the time you reach Kiawe, and even its water attacks won't do too much because of its special attack being so low. At best, the evolution would be well after the halfway point even in the Ultra games, where you have to walk halfway across the 3rd island, but in the original Sun and Moon, you literally can't get Crabominable until the Elite Four. Now granted, I don't like Crabominable, but if you're not gonna gain any stats or new type coverage until the last second, what's the point of even doing it? They have gotten better since their debut, but that first outing for Crabrawler started out so promising, only to get promptly outclassed as early as 2 hours into the experience. Number 3. Steelix. As a trade item evolution, Steelix is usually pretty hard to get, and I'm not gonna hold that against it in, say, the Gen 2 games. I am instead talking about the Steelix you get in X and Y. See, in Kalos you can find a trade where they ask for a love disc in exchange for their Steelix. Not even in Onyx with a metal coat, a full-blown Steelix. This is of course a great deal for the player, and you would be foolish not to get one where you can, especially considering his Gyro Ball could be a big help against the upcoming Rock-type gym. However, that's about where it ends, because the next gym beyond that is Fighting, where Steelix is weak to it, and its terribly slow speed means that it will get hit, and then Ramos is packing Bulldoze on his Go-Goat, so you're not even safe there. Steelix would be immune to Clement, sure, but it also literally doesn't learn any ground-type attacks until level 43 for some reason, so it can only be a wall at best. Despite its name, Steelix is also sparse on learning the Steel-type attacks, so even the one other time that it could shine with Valerie's gym, it's hampered by relying on the same old Gyro Ball that it had when you got it. Or you could maybe have learned Iron Tail by then, so it's either a move with 5 PP or 75% accuracy. It's your choice. The fact that the Iron Snake takes neutral damage from things like grass and ice that Steel should normally be able to handle, tied to the utterly abysmal move pool, means that while Steelix is a massive powerhouse at the second gym, it can't maintain that dominance. Even with the new Fairy type trying to make it stay relevant. If only it could have had its Mega Evolution just a bit earlier. Number 2. Sudowoodo. As I've talked about Pokemon roadblocks before, Sudowoodo is honestly one of the best. Not only is his camouflage brilliant and the method of encountering him quite funny, but he's not just blocking the route, he also opens up a new quick path back to places that you've already been. So they were really thoughtful about everything when designing this Pokemon's introduction. Unfortunately, they didn't think much about what he would do after that. It's actually pretty helpful to have Sudowoodo against Morty, since you instantly get a Pokemon that's up to the level of his ghost, while having 100 or more in both attack and defense. So it can hit them pretty hard with a rock throw, or possibly even mimic Gengar's Shadow Ball right back at them. So if you've been leaning on just 1 or 2 Pokemon up to that point, this Sudowoodo can come in at just the right time to provide some relief. But that's about where it ends. This fake tree never even gets a chance to impress again, because you have to fight a bunch of water types in the lighthouse and on the way to Cyanwood, only to face a fighting type gym leader there, so this stronger, higher level Pokemon just has nothing to do. And it doesn't stop there, because the next gym is Steel, which Sudowoodo is weak to, and while on paper Rock is strong against Ice, all of Price's team have additional types that this plant mimic is weak to. Then Claire has dragons packing water attacks, so good luck there, and all of the Elite Four members have counters to Rock as well. Even Koga's many bug types have a surprise Giga Drain that could floor you in an instant. Maybe it would have been better to let Sudowoodo stay blended into the trees instead of letting it feel useful for a moment, only to be reminded of how inadequate it really is in its home region. I guess it can start a support group with Chikorita in that regard. Number 1. Relicanth. Okay, so maybe this one is cheating a bit because you already know what's happening here. Relicanth is a completely unassuming Pokemon that you just catch to fill out the decks, but then suddenly it's one of the most important Pokemon in history. For some reason, out of nowhere, they decided Relicanth was required in order to unlock the Regi Trio. That's right, the living sea fossil is a necessity to pick up if you wanted to be able to get 3 whole legendary Pokemon, and to open up the catacombs across the region. And you know, really, in a way, this Pokemon holds the key to Regigigas as well, because you need all 3 of the Hoenn Golems brought over to Sinnoh to wake it up. So indirectly, Relicanth is even needed a whole generation later. Now, it's true that this is not the only Pokemon required for this. You need a Wailord to unlock them as well. However, Wailord has a lot more HP HP, is faster than Relicanth, and has the outstandingly strong attack Water Spout, which means that the Float Whale can contribute to the team a bit more than Relicanth could by the time you catch one, because you have to dive in order to get a Relicanth, which only happens in the routes surrounding Sudowoodo, which is also where you'll find a Wilmer, but as you'll notice, this is also the final gym, so Relicanth doesn't really have much to offer to entice you to replace a team member that late into the game. And certainly not when the last Hoenn gym is the water type, so the half-rock fish wouldn't be able to last all that long, let alone against the Elite Four that have big threats as well. And this isn't something like a Beldum or Bagon that you can get late but could evolve into something useful. Relicanth doesn't change at all. So it went from being the most essential Pokémon in the world to being put in the box for the rest of the game faster than any example that I've ever seen. Maybe if we could have used Dive earlier, this decline could have been mitigated, and I don't dislike Relicanth at all, but hopefully one day this ancient ocean dweller can be put in a position to be appreciated more fully than when it first appeared. So, those are the top 6 vital Pokémon that can save the day, and then rapidly and shockingly become a burden. Which Pokémon do you love for their 15 minutes of fame only to toss them away? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And until next time, stay grounded!